reliance on the material within this video is at your own risk. It's suggested that you use this video as a guide. We don't take responsibility for any conclusions drawn from the material covered in this video, and it should not be used as the sole basis for making decisions.
Hi guys, and welcome to English requirements for work visas. Today we're going to have a look at what is needed for visas, what tests you can take, those sorts of things. We'll be covering the independent skilled visa. We're going to be covering sponsored skilled visas, and we're also going to be including a few others like the student visa and the graduate visa and a couple of other bits and pieces. Just to note that this is not for assessments. There are English requirements for assessments, there are English requirements for skill select, and there are English requirements for state nominations. So there are all sorts of applications require different types of English, but all we're going to be doing is focusing on the requirements for the visa application itself. So I think the most important things to start off with are the exemptions, who do not need to take any tests. We talk about some shortcuts, ways to get around English requirements, and these are called shortcuts or streams. And we'll also talk about the tests just briefly and the results. But we'll actually go into detail on each of these visas. So let's begin.
All right, the first place to start is really with exemptions and those people who will not need to show any English results for their visa. We're also obviously going to show the shortcuts. The main exemptions are for particular passport holders. These are passport holders, generally British, American, Canadian, Irish, and New Zealanders. So in most circumstances they're exempt. There are also individuals that have studied in those countries as well. So if they've studied either in tertiary or even in high school, it has to be proven. Those people that are in foreign affairs or defence, and those people with high salary as well, won't need to show English. And also, in some exceptions, there are occupations that don't need to show. So we've also got the idea of some shortcuts. Now, these shortcuts is the best way for me to describe it, and these are mainly for sponsored visas. But the type of shortcuts to get around showing English are generally sometimes the type of sponsor that you have. So if you're sponsored by a big business, for example, rather than standard business, then you can be exempt from showing English. And there are also exemptions or shortcuts if you've had a previous visa and you've worked in Australia for 2 years, or also if you've studied. So just looking at the difference between your previous visa, the work, and not having a visa here. These are called streams. And these really depend on how you apply for your visa. So you can apply under different streams for your visa, but these are mainly for sponsored visas. Now, next we just talk briefly about the different types of tests. You might already know the main test is called the IELTS test, which is mainly for testing British English, and there's a general and academic IELTS test that you can take. There's the TOEFL IBT, which tests more for American English. There's the Cambridge test and the Pearson and the OET. The OET is mainly for healthcare. So it's also important to understand the different results that you get from these tests. And these tests will be on 4 main components of your English. They will test your reading, they will test your writing, they will test your listening, and of course your speaking. You will also get an overall score. So a score individually for each of those bands is what we call them, and you'll also get a score overall. So the bands are important, and so is your overall score. So understand the difference, as you may need to get English above a level on each of those bands versus an overall score. Now, what I've done is I've put all of the information about the different visas into one spreadsheet for you, and you can get this spreadsheet by sending us an email and signing up to our subscriber list. you'll see that there are three large rows. There's the sponsored, independent, and other visas that I was talking about. There's the visa name, and then we've got what we call the stream. There's also the next column which identifies if any exemptions exist for this particular type of visa. And then we've got different columns which explain the different levels of English. So if you note at the top, there's functional, vocational, competent, proficient, and superior. These are all terms used by the Immigration Department. And we're just using IELTS as the prime example here. That's the general IELTS, not the academic. And we'll note that the functional up to vocational, competent, proficient, and superior, these are all increasing levels of English proficiency. So getting started on the 457 temporary work visa, we'll see that under the stream of labour agreement, and generally these are only applicable to big business, your English test is determined by the individual labour agreement. So the labour agreement that that business has with the Immigration Department. They might not even need you to test in English. Large corporations have these labour agreements. For a standard business sponsorship, there are exemptions that exist for a 457. So if you've studied or if you've got a passport, if you're a high earner, and there are some occupations that may have exemptions, but you'll see that you'll need an IELTS of 4.5 at least in all bands. We recommend that you see the details in the spreadsheet if you need more information. So let's have a look at the permanent visa options for sponsored people. And they're very similar. There's the 186, which is the employer nomination scheme, and also the regional sponsored migration scheme. And you'll see that the English requirements are fairly similar. They both have the same types of streams. So if you look at the stream under the 186 and the 187, there's the TRT stream, which is the Temporary Resident Transition stream. There are exemptions that exist for this stream, and it's mainly to do with people that have had 2 years on a 457 work visa, which is the visa that we just went over. So if you've been on that for 2 years, you can apply for a 186 or a 187 under that stream. There are study, passport, and high earner exemptions. If you don't have an exemption, you'll need to show vocational English. The next stream that they both have in common is the direct entry streams. And for direct entry, you just require competent English, which is a level of IELTS 6 in all bands or above, of course. And that's what you'll need for direct entry. And then lastly, the last stream in each of these sponsored visas are the labour agreements. And of course, these are determined by the contract that the big business has with immigration. Now, let's have a look at these independent visas. These are fairly simple. What you'll see is the 189, the 190, and the 489 regional visas. All of these visas require competent English, which means an IELTS 6 in all bands. Obviously, if you have proficient or superior, you get extra points in Skill Select, but just for the visa requirements itself, you do need an IELTS or a competent level of English. There are exemptions that exist for only passport holders. So if you're looking at getting an independent visa, you certainly need that competent level of English. If you need more information on the competent level, obviously you're able to get more information on the links that we have. That just leaves the other visas that we have to talk about, and these are the new student visa, which is the 500 visa, and the 485 temporary graduate visa. So if you're looking at a student visa, you can get an exemption if you've obviously studied in an English-speaking country or an English course, or if you've got a passport from a particular country. If you don't, then you will need to have an overall score of 5.5 in your IELTS if you look here, and if you have lower than 5.5, you'll need to undertake an ELICOS course. Depending on how good your English is, it may be 10 weeks at least or 20 weeks in order to get a student visa. However, you can just study ELICOS, which is English studies, while you're in Australia. Also, for the temporary graduates, you will need an overall IELTS of 6 in order to get your temporary graduate visa. There are some other requirements, but having a look at the spreadsheet that is on offer, we can click on the links within the spreadsheet. This particular link takes us to the 457 requirements for English. It'll show you what's required for each of the tests. There's the IELTS test there. And if looking at the other links for all bands, there's the competent and the vocational definitions. And all of the tests related with those as well. So it is a really handy spreadsheet for you to have a look at. We've also included links for the others, which are the 485 visa and the 500 new student visa. These have very particular requirements for your English tests that we suggest that you check out. So overall, and looking at a summary, it's best to have a look at what scores will get you what types of visas. So if you have competent English, which is the equivalent of IELTS 6 in all bands, then you can apply for all work visas. There isn't any restrictions. However, if you're unable to obtain that level and you only have, say, a vocational level of English, then you can only get a 186 or a 187 after 2 years on a 457 temporary visa. You will also have a level of English that is acceptable to get a 457 temporary work visa. However, the specific scores to meet the criteria for specific visas are in the spreadsheet. Thank you for watching the video. Please like and subscribe. We do have an ebook that's available for those people looking at starting independent skilled visa. We're also available for online consultations. If you require more details, please go to our website, 123migrationagent.com.au. Okay, thank you. Bye.